Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum, everyone. I'm Jason Romano. So great to have you joining us here on the program today, and very excited about our guest. We don't normally get to talk to an Olympic gold medal winner, but today we get to do that with Nicole Hensley. She was a member of Team USA in the Olympic gold medal winning women's hockey team from 2018. And if you remember watching those games in Pyeongchang in South Korea, you saw what was probably one of the more incredible finishes you'll ever see in that gold medal game when the USA prevailed and won. And Nicole Hensley joins us on the podcast to talk about that and to talk about just her journey of faith and her journey of hockey. And it's an interesting time for women's hockey, especially from the professional ranks. Nicole talks about that as well. She's great. I think you'll really like getting to know Nicole Hensley, USA Olympic gold medal winning hockey goalie, who joins us here on Sports Spectrum. Take a listen. Nicole, welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you. And USA Olympic gold medal winner. It's been a few years, but when I say that, that's still got to kind of bring a big smile to your face, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the dream, when you start playing as a young girl, that's the highest level you can get to. So just to even be there, or just be a part of that team and be able to come out on top was definitely a dream come true.
No, that's awesome. And I want to talk a lot about that experience in a little bit, but you mentioned the dream since you were a little kid. So let's start, I guess, with your background as a hockey player. When does hockey become a passion and a love for Nicole Hensley?
So for me, I'm from Colorado, and my family moved out there when I was 3 or 4, and so I kind of tried a bunch of different sports as a kid, and right around that time, in 2001, the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup. Yeah. And so, just around Colorado in general, so many people were, kind of latching on to hockey at the time and being excited about that playoff run. And then, the Cup being in Colorado was really cool to watch. And so from there, I kind of just was like, looked at my parents and was kind of like, I want to try this. And my parents are from Kansas City, Missouri, and had never played hockey or really even been to an ice rink, I think. And they were just like, okay, sure. So we just kind of went to the local boys association. It was like 10 minutes from our house, and laced up the skates and just kind of never looked back.
You play the position of goalie. So you mentioned Colorado, and Patrick Waugh's name automatically comes to my mind. Is he the guy that you remember as a kid watching when he was with the Avalanche and saying, I want to play that position too? Or is it a completely different story?
No, it absolutely was watching Patrick Waugh. I was very blessed to, have one of, if not the best goaltender in the world right there in the backyard to go watch on TV every night or get to go watch live a couple times a year. It was, at the time earlier in his career kind of really led the charge in creating the butterfly and that kind of style of goaltending, which kind of shaped the way goaltenders play today. So to be able to watch him kind of night in and night out for most of my childhood, definitely kind of shaped the way I play and approach games. And I couldn't have been more blessed to just have him right there in the backyard to watch.
All right. So there's people listening that may not know a lot about hockey. And then there's people like me who watch hockey, but I'm not like this diehard fan. I don't know what the butterfly is. So can you explain that to our listeners, including myself?
Yes, absolutely. So a butterfly for a goaltender is basically when a shot comes and you kind of drop down on your knees. And the way the pads are designed now, the front of the pad kind of flares out so that the whole front of the pad is showing when you're on your knees. So it gives you a lot of coverage on the lower part of the net. So generally, if it's a low shot, you drop down like that. And, back in the day when it was it was when goaltenders didn't wear helmets. They weren't allowed to drop down on shots. They had to make saves standing up.
Yeah.
So then as they started getting these helmets, and these guys were like, oh, I guess it would make sense, for me to drop down to make these saves. So then they kind of started doing that. They were, maybe going down on one knee and different things like that. And then as it kind of came along, Patrick Waugh, as well as some others, started dropping down on both knees consistently, and it's been coined the butterfly. So
that's good. That's a good explanation. You'll be a good teacher, Nicole. And I know actually you're coaching as a goalie coach right now at the college you went to, so I'm sure you can teach the butterfly there too. But you mentioned, and it just makes me think out loud. And if you go to YouTube, I'm sure you can find old highlights. But how in the world did people play hockey without helmets? I mean, you play this sport, so can you imagine never wearing a helmet as a goalie? I mean, that's got to be insane, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I really don't know that I'd be playing. I definitely would not be playing goalie if we didn't have helmets on. Thank goodness it's changed so much. I guess probably in the same way that the way you tackle in football and things like that have changed. But
sure,
I can't imagine getting hit it hurts enough if you got a helmet on and get hit in the face. So I can't imagine what it'd be like to get hit without one on.
Well, the equipment that you guys wear as goalies too is a lot, isn't it? Can you kind of share and explain the amount of equipment that goes on as you're preparing for a game? It looks like you're carrying like another 50 pounds.
That's actually exactly right.
Really?
My hockey bag weighs about 50 pounds. Whenever I go to check in for a flight. 50 pounds is right on the mark, but, so.
That was a guess, by the way. So good job by me.
Right on. But, so we've got our skates, and then we've got, the big leg pads are probably the most notable thing. And they go over your skate and then come up to probably just below hip height. Depending on what your style is, what you're most comfortable with. And then you've got, pants or breezers, that you just pull on like you would a pair of shorts, and they have a ton of protection all over them. But at the same time, in certain areas, they have to be able to bend because it's obviously your hips are really important in being able to move around. So it'd be interesting to know how they've figured out exactly, where to put the flexibility, where to put the padding. And then after that, you have a big chest protector. And so that's got padding on your arms, padding on stomach, shoulders, and it's generally a pretty big piece of equipment. They've actually started trying to shrink them down in the NHL because they were getting so big that they were like, you guys don't need all that protection. You're just trying to take away a couple extra inches at this point. So, but they are pretty big. And then under that, most people wear a neck guard. So this neck guard, you just kind of strap it around your neck with a piece with Velcro on it. And then it has generally extra padding that'll go kind of along your collarbone, just for that extra protection on the collarbone and the neck. And then you've got your helmet, which very important, as we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And then you've got a glove in one hand, catch the pucks with, and then in the other hand, it's called blocker, which has basically a glove on it where you can hold your stick, and then the backside of it is just kind of a big 12-inch basically blocker, I guess, for better choice of words, where the puck will hit it and you kind of try to deflect it off your blocker into the corner.
Jeez. Nicole, it would have been a lot easier just to pick up a basketball and get some sneakers, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm too short for that, though. So I
understand. I understand completely. Nicole Hensley is joining us here on Sports Spectrum. And you and I were talking off the air before we started recording that you grew up in Littleton, Colorado, and that's actually right near our Sports Spectrum headquarters in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. So let's go back growing up and intersect the conversation with faith. Tell us about your faith journey growing up. Where was faith for you and kind of where it took shape?
Yeah, so for me, I'm very blessed that I grew up in a household that we went to church every Sunday, and we were part of Awanas and things on Wednesday nights. We volunteered every couple months to help clean the church and volunteer for different things. Both my parents were involved in Vacation Bible School, and so I was just really, really blessed to be in a family where our faith was a big part of our lives, and lucky to have parents that made sure that we understood that. And it's one of those things where it's kind of interesting when you grow up with it. It's just kind of something you do, and you go to church because mom says you go to church, or
Sure.
you go on Wednesday nights because you're supposed to go on Wednesday nights. So it was one of those things where, I knew the Bible stories. I knew, who Jesus was. But at the same time, I don't know that I really, understood what putting your faith in Jesus meant until, I went to college. And at that point, you're off on your own. You can make a lot of your own decisions. And it's like, that's kind of, to me, it was like, I guess, what do I do now? Like, this is up to me. This is a little bit more up to me. And,
Sure.
it was a really cool setting where we had, 5 or 6 girls on our hockey team where we'd get together once a week and have, a Bible study. And so we kind of were going to church as a group. We had this Bible study. And so it was just kind of being surrounded by, other women of faith was awesome. And it was kind of at that time where it did become more of a, where I started to really get it, in the sense that, it's not just something you do because you're supposed to. It's like, it's so much more than that. It's Jesus died on the cross for your sins, and he wants to have this personal relationship with you, not just this relationship on Sunday or when you're in the building. It's day in and day out, every second of every day. And how, and for me too, I actually struggled a lot with, confidence playing in college.
Yeah.
And that was kind of eye-opening to me too, that like, I get so concerned about, what my save percentage is or what kind of goals I've allowed. And it was kind of eye-opening to realize that at the end of the day, like, Jesus could really care less how many goals I let in. He cares that, were you a good teammate today? Did you reflect my light, to not only your teammates, but the other team? Like, how did you interact with the referees today? And there's just something to that I think it finally just clicked for me. And that had really sent me kind of, on my journey in faith at that point.
I love that story. And I know as your career starts to blossom, suddenly there's an opportunity that arises and you find yourself competing and then eventually on the USA women's national team. So can you share the story, how that came about and how the opportunity for you to eventually become an Olympic gold medal winner took shape?
Yeah. So, the way it works for the national team, is you compete, you get asked to, come to these camps. And there's usually one in August and one in, December every year. And at these camps, they invite, who the coaching staff and the general managers kind of deem as, the best people in the country. And you come in and, they create 3 or 4 teams, and you do a bunch of inter squad scrimmages, a bunch of practices. So you're there competing against the best people in the world, or the best people in the country. And, they kind of evaluate you based on those camps and continue to watch how you do throughout the season with either your professional team or your college team. And so from there, if they like what they see, they'll continue inviting you back to camps. And then eventually, if, they feel like you're a good fit, they ask you to be a part of either a world championship team. So the world championships are in the spring, and there's another tournament called the Four Nations Cup in the fall. So when I was, right out of college, I got asked to, or my senior year in college, I was asked to be on the world championship team in 2016. And, being a goaltender, especially a new goaltender, a younger one, you're kind of the third string. So you're really just kind of there experiencing everything. And, kind of getting to know the ropes and that sort of thing, and kind of just watching and learning from the two goaltenders that are ahead of you. So I was fortunate to have Jesse Vedder and Alex Rigsby to look up to at that time, and kind of learn from them. And then kind of getting invited back to another camp and did well there, and got asked to be on the Four Nations team, where kind of the same situation, just kind of learning from Alex at this point. And then from there, made the next World Championship team in 2017, and actually got to start in most of those games and play against Canada twice, and we ended up winning in overtime the championship game. So that was a really cool team to be a part of. Just to, it's always so close with the U.S. and Canada. It's one of the best rivalries in sports, and so to kind of come out on top in an overtime game like that was really exciting. And then in terms of the Olympics, right after that 2017 World Championship, about a month or two later, they bring together enough players, which is about 40 some, to create two teams to scrimmage against each other. You scrimmage for 3 days, and then after that, they name the Olympic team for that following year. That's probably the most nerve-wracking, because it's do or die at that point. And was fortunate enough to play well enough to get asked to be on the team. And so we all moved down to Florida to train together for 6 months leading into the Olympics in South Korea. So train together for 6 months, and you play a couple of games against Canada here and there, and just kind of see where you're at, see what's working for the team, what's not, and then it's pretty much go time. We flew to South Korea about 2 weeks before the actual Olympics, and so you kind of get there and get to see the excitement of being in the village, and the facilities and everything like that, and then you go kind of opening ceremonies, which was definitely the coolest experience, I thought, of the whole thing. There were a couple of us that decided we were going to get in the front of the USA group, and we kind of locked arms so nobody could get past us.
That's smart.
And that was, yes, yeah, because it was just kind of a revolving door, everyone running around each other to get to the front. We were like, man, how do we stay up here? And yeah, so we locked arms and got to be some of the first people out there, which was really cool. And then after that, it's back to kind of being focused and turning in, it's a hockey tournament at the end of the day, and going out and working together, knowing, that you've worked together for 6 months and your whole life before that, as a team to get to where you are, and trusting and believing in each other to do each other's jobs. And we were fortunate to come out on top.
We'll get back to our conversation with Nicole in just a moment, but want to take a minute to tell you about Sports Spectrum and our Sports Spectrum magazine. This is a great way for you to become a part of our ministry at Sports Spectrum by subscribing to our magazine. It's $18 for an entire year subscription, so it's super cheap, and it's really a great tool to send to someone who loves sports, and you've been praying for them, maybe you want them to kind of learn more about God, about Jesus, and this magazine is a perfect way to do that, because you get the stories, you get the articles, you get the photos that you get in other sports magazines, but in the back of every Sports Spectrum magazine, you have devotionals from the athletes themselves, and you have a gospel presentation. And it's very non-intrusive, if you will. It's just a simple way to present what we believe, who Jesus is, and have an athlete be the one to present it. So subscribe to the magazine. I think you'll love it. It's a really what the pillar of this ministry was founded on, and I think you guys would love checking out the Sports Spectrum magazine. Been going strong since 1985. You can subscribe today simply by going to sportspectrum.com, sportspectrum.com. That's our website, and subscribe. We actually got another way now. You can actually call us toll-free, 866-821-3971, 866-821-3971, and subscribe today to the Sports Spectrum magazine. Let's get back to our conversation with Olympic gold medal winner Nicole Hensley here on Sports Spectrum. Let me ask you about that time in Florida. 6 months, you moved to Florida to kind of train together and bond together. My brother once called the word community. He's a pastor. He said, community is common unity. And I was like, oh, I like that a lot. Common unity. That's what community is. And so for you, you're developing this community with these players. I wonder what that was like, just trying to, I guess even more away from the ice than just blending on the ice, obviously, as a team, but getting to know some of the players. And I remember we talked to Gigi Marvin on our Sports Spectrum podcast about this as well when she was going through it. It was before the Olympics took place. And she talked about just the unity that you find among your team coming together and, having this common goal. What was that 6-month period like training together?
It's kind of, especially with the way the way our sport works is and the way the national team works, only coming in for camps and tournaments every couple months. So you really don't spend a ton of time with each other outside of that 6-month period. So it's people, there were people I played on teams with 3 or 4 times, but for these 2-week periods where you're super laser focused on the, winning this tournament, that you don't really get to know people outside of the rink all that much. And
Right.
So to have that opportunity to actually get to know, so many of these people outside of, what they do on the ice was, I think that does help in the long run. It's one thing to trust a person on the ice, and it's a completely different trust them as a friend and person off the ice. And I think, if you can build that chemistry off the ice and it can be as strong as possible, then when you go into a game, there's just no doubt in all of your teammates next to you. So we all lived fairly close together down there too. So you were spending a ton of time with your teammates, and if we didn't have, the right group, that could almost be a deterrent if
Sure.
people are annoyed with each other and different things like that. So
Yeah.
I think that also goes to show the kind of leadership we have, that where you've got everyone down there doing the right things individually and as a team. So it's easy to hang out with people like that day in and day out, and I think that was huge for us in the end.
What about from a faith perspective? Obviously, not everybody on the team is a believer, but yet there are finding those common, like-minded people that you can spend time with on a deeper level and do, in essence, ministry with or Bible studies, staying connected to God. What did that look like?
Yeah, so like you said, Gigi Marvin being down there, she was extremely helpful for me in continuing to grow my faith while we were down there and continuing to learn. And we would do some Bible studies together every week, every other week type thing. So that was, to be able to talk with her about just whether it was something going on the ice or personal lives, whatever it was, to be able to have someone down there who understands things from a faith perspective was I don't know what I would have done without it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, that not everyone having that faith, is just kind of you go to the rink every day or interact. You never know when someone needs that light. You never know when someone's going to start asking questions. You never, so just kind of being open-minded, having different conversations with different people, and or just if someone's having a down day, just seeing how you can help pick them up. That's kind of, to me, what it means to be that light for different people. And from there, you just never know how the Holy Spirit's going to work. So just kind of being ready and praying that if, he needs you or it's your time to step up and say something, you can be ready to do that.
Did you see opportunities to be able to do that?
I think, yeah, there's definitely a couple different times, with either whether it was, my roommates asking me, what are you doing? You're always in there just kind of reading for a bit before we leave, like, what are you doing in there? And just like sharing with them what you're reading that day. It doesn't have to be a huge, long conversation, just kind of trying to open the door, and trying to find that balance between, being so excited they asked and like just being overwhelming with it to the point where they're like, you're kind of weird, or just kind of obviously not making it seem like it's not a big deal. So, definitely some opportunities like that. And then, like I said, just trying to, reflect Christ's light by the way you act and the things you say, and just trying to do things the right way.
No, that's good. Last couple of questions here with Nicole Hensley on Sports Spectrum. So take us to the moment when you win the gold medal and like the immediate aftermath of that and sort of that jubilation. Obviously, God is good in the wins and the losses, but there's something about an experience like that at the top of the mountain when you get this opportunity to win a gold medal and what that experience was like. Take us to that.
So we went with, the game was tied, and so we went to overtime. It was still tied after overtime. So now we're in a shootout.
Yes.
And it's a 3-person shootout. We're tied at the end of the 3-person shootout, so it's gone to a sudden death shootout. And
it was crazy.
Yeah, so saying it was nerve-wracking, probably a little bit of an understatement. But
Yeah.
So we've got Jocelyn Lammer who goes down, makes an incredible move and scores. So at this point, we know we just need Maddie Rooney to make one save, and we did it. And so they come down on Maddie, and Maddie makes a really good save. And I will admit to have been already halfway over the boards before the shot had been taken. I was like, Maddie's got this. We're good. And it's kind of a blur right after that. Everyone rushing on the ice to hug Maddie, and so much screaming. You kind of look around at some of the older players. For a couple of them, it was their third Olympics, and they, the 2 times before, they'd come up just short in overtime. So just to kind of watch the emotion on their face and the tears of just, being on the national team for 8 to 12 years, and finally that sigh of relief, finally we did it moment, was cool to witness, for those players. And to just get to, they kind of had to be like, hey, we need you guys to actually go stand on the blue line now. Like we have to give you your medals. And it was just kind of like, oh yeah, we gotta go stand. And, just to kind of stand there arm in arm with your teammates, listening to the national anthem. And, it was kind of cool. You could hear a pin drop right before the anthem. And, from there, all you could hear really was the music, and then, all of us singing. So I can still kind of feel that silence right before the anthem. That was just kind of, I don't know what other people were thinking, but I just remember being like, this is it. Like, this is the moment you watch on TV. This is the moment that you dream about, is to stand here and sing the national anthem with your teammates after winning. So just kind of a I don't know, big realization right in that moment that, it's hard to put into words.
I love it. I think it's an awesome, it's awesome to watch somebody go through that and then try to be able to explain it. And many times it's so difficult to explain it. What was the coolest moment for you post gold medal winning, in terms of opportunity, platform? Because listen, when you win a gold medal, it doesn't matter if you did a lot, a little, just a part, you got a gold medal. And now all of a sudden that increases the platform, not only to share your faith, but just to experience things that maybe you don't get to experience if you don't have that gold medal opportunity. So yeah. What was your favorite moment in post winning that gold medal?
I think the two that stick out to me was, before we left Korea, maybe a day or two after we actually won. A couple of us had the chance to go up, snowboarding with Ariel Gold, who won bronze medal in the half pipe for the U.S. And she was like, yeah, I'll take you guys up, take you to learn to snowboard. And so there's about 5 of us up on this mountain, and, you don't go skiing or snowboarding, for years at this point, so you don't get hurt, for hockey. So most of us haven't done this in forever, and most of us have never actually snowboarded. And so just to kind of go up on the mountain and just, it's kind of just having fun, being a kid again, but also being horrible, absolutely horrible, and mostly tumbling down the mountain. But just kind of when I think back to that, I was like, we went snowboarding in Korea. That's kind of crazy with a half pipe bronze medalist. That was who was teaching us. Something you don't get to do every day. And then I just say, when we got back and we had a victory tour, and we got to do a lot of different things. We were on Ellen, we were on the Tonight Show. We got to go to the Empire State Building, went to a lot of NHL games. But at all those places, we had the opportunity to kind of share the medal with, anyone who was there. And so to see all of these little girls, a chance to touch a gold medal as a kid, like that just doesn't happen every day, especially in this sport. So to see all of these girls, get to visibly see what they could do one day if they the right doors are open for them. It was cool to just be able to put that belief in their hands, basically. And a good piece of advice we got from past Olympians was, the gold medal is not to put in a cool stand in your house. It's to be taken out, to be touched by as many people as can touch it, to be dropped, to be, shared with all these people. You never know what kind of impact that could have on somebody. You never know what kind of conversation you're going to start. And maybe, from there it ends up being a conversation about faith or just, different things like that. So just to have the opportunity to inspire young girls and young kids in general was a lot of fun.
I love that. And I think I've heard that advice from other people, but then I've also talked to like guys who've won Super Bowls and, World Series, and they're like, yeah, my ring's in a safety, box, and I very rarely ever take it out. And I'm thinking, man, what a great witnessing tool, to be quite honest, especially if you're a believer. But just that, to make that, and I've held Super Bowl rings, I've never held a gold medal, but to be able to put a Super Bowl ring on and be like, man, this thing is so cool. You just make that moment, especially for young people, and give them that opportunity. It's such a cool thing. So I love that advice that was shared to you, Nicole. And I think it's one that everybody listening who may have won something, cool, they should definitely not just keep it and hide it, but, not brag about it, but you're just using it as an opportunity to help others and to put a smile on their face. All right, last question. And if you know this podcast, this radio show, you know where we're going with our interview here, Nicole. What are you learning from God today? He's brought you to where you are now. I know you're doing some coaching, goalie coaching at your alma mater in Lindenwood in Missouri, and God's got a lot of great things going on in your life. So what are you learning from him right now? What's he teaching you?
I think right now it's a lot about trust in uncertainty. So I play for the PWHPA now, the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. Sorry, it's kind of a mouthful.
That's okay.
But so that was started because a group of about 200 of North America's top players elected to not play in the professional league in the United States this year, in hopes that we can create more of a conversation around women's hockey, in hopes that we can showcase what professional women's hockey could really look like with the proper support. And so obviously in doing that, there's a lot of uncertainty, what games are we going to play this year? How are we going to make this work? What do we do? Who's going to run this? And just so many questions obviously going into that. So I think for me, looking ahead, there's just a fair amount of uncertainty in the women's hockey game in general. So, just to kind of trust him and that he'll guide the game where it's supposed to go. And the same thing with my personal career. It's just, like I said, go with national team stuff. You go to these camps and try to continue, performing as best you can. And, at the same time, you don't have any control over the decisions that are made. So just entrusting him that he has a plan in place, and, just keep going to him, just keep trusting him, and you will end up exactly where he wants you in the end.
She is Nicole Hensley, USA Olympic gold medal winner, and it's been really cool to get to know you, Nicole, and to hear your story. Just appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Great stuff there from Nicole Hensley. I love talking to people who've experienced the apex in sports, right? To be able to achieve and win an Olympic gold medal and to still maintain that humility and that faith and that trust in God. I love it. And Nicole is a great example of that. You can follow her on Twitter and on Instagram. If you just search Nicole Hensley, she's verified there. You can find her there, and she is a fan of hockey and ice cream, it says on her Twitter page, which is not a bad thing to be a fan of. I certainly love the ice cream side as well. She's awesome, and just grateful to her that she was willing to come on and share her story here on Sports Spectrum. Thank you to you as well for listening. We are grateful, and I know we say that all the time, but it's true. The fact that you've hit play on your app or podcast app or however you're listening to this episode means that you took the time to invest in what we're producing, what we're putting out here with Sports Spectrum. So thank you for that. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast, and then go tell someone about Sports Spectrum. So many of the different people that we've heard from, big name athletes and even others who just love sports, have come to me and told me they heard about the podcast because somebody told them about it. Not because they discovered it on social media, which is another way too, but it's because someone told them. And so if you like this podcast and you like what you've heard, please go tell someone. I think this is, God really using this ministry in an amazing way to tell the stories of sports and faith, to point others back to Jesus. That's what we want to do. It'd be easy to say we want to point others back to us at Sports Spectrum, but really, when I'm telling you or asking you to tell others, what we're really trying to do is to have people hear about Jesus. That's it. And so thank you for listening. Thank you for investing into our ministry. And all of us here at Sports Spectrum are truly grateful for that. You can reach us on our social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can email me directly if you have any ideas for guests or any thoughts about what Sports Spectrum could or should be doing going forward. You can email me, jason@sportspectrum.com, jason@sportspectrum.com. We'll see you next time with a brand new episode here on Sports Spectrum. I hope you have a great rest of your day.